Welcome back. It's that time of the month again. It is the last Friday of September, and that means it's time for you to go ahead, talk to your dealer, and this is the last few hours for pre-orders for September. It also means it's time to talk about the new stuff. And man, do we have some great stuff to talk about today. So, hey, you know what? Before we get started, let's go ahead and do some shout outs. Who do we have joining us today? We've got KC. We've got, SP Scotty. We got Joseph. We got Richard, Frederick. Guys, thanks for coming on board. We'll wait a little bit to get some more guys on there. Let's see. Mr. Rick Simpson is coming in from Texas. We got Bob, Mr. Rail Boomer, Joel. Hurry before the railroad calls him. Okay, well, I'll see what I can do. We're going to keep this under an hour. That's the goal. David, welcome aboard. Miguel, Jeff, guys, welcome aboard. Scott, Idaho Rail fan. Sam. All right. So, yeah, like I was saying, it's the beginning of the month for new products. Maybe the end of September, but we're talking about October. And here we go. We've got some great stuff to talk about today. We're going to go through it briefly. And like I tell you every month, what we're going to do, we're going to go through this stuff briefly and then tune in for Train Tuesday. Every Train Tuesday from here until the end of the October announcements, we'll highlight one or two of these items and talk about them more in depth. But today is just kind of a preview of what's going to happen in the next during the next month. So a few more shout outs, and then we will get this train rolling on this Friday afternoon. So we've got James, Kyle, Mark, David, Lewis, Austin, Kevin, D'Angelo, and Richard. Let's get it going. So you know what I say on Train Tuesdays? I always say the same thing. Maybe by now you guys have started your weekend early. I saw somebody in Ohio is having an RPM meet, so that's cool. So let's go ahead. Let's put the hobby knife down. Let's sit back and get comfortable in our favorite chair, grab the beverage of our choice, and let's see what we've got by Athern the month of October. Here we go. Starting out the month with GP38-2s. You know, I've said it to some folks that aren't model railroaders. The GP38-2, it's kind of the pickup truck of railroading. If you think about it, these guys came out in the early 70s and they've been working hard ever since. And they do everything from mainline all the way to industrial switching. So they're very versatile locomotive. And we're starting off with some CSX. You guys were asking for YN3 CSX, and here you go. This is mid-2000s era. These former Conrail units. Now, we know some of you guys too, myself included sometimes. Sometimes you need a lease unit. These are former Texas Mexican Railway locomotives. Painted up in the helm, leasing blue and maroon. Really cool. This is going to be mid-1990s. For you guys that have been asking for 90s stuff, here you go. Everybody likes SP. So we did something a little different this time. We did SP, but in the former helm leasing. These are mid-1990s. We'll talk more about those on a Train Tuesday coming right up. We also are going to do the Louisville and Nashville. But we didn't do just one paint scheme. We did two. We did the 1970s paint scheme. And we also did the early 1980s. There's slight differences. If you look at them closely, you'll see there's a slight difference. Now, L&N fans already know the difference. That's the first time we've done these in Genesis. Grand Trunk Western in two paint schemes. You guys have been asking for Grand Trunk too, so we wanted to set you up. We got two different paint schemes here. We're offering it in three different road numbers. Your standard Grand Trunk paint scheme, 1980s. And then check it out, Operation Lifesaver. Looking at 1990s with that. And actually, I take that back. They're 1990s on both of those. Now, here's the one that everybody's been waiting for. And I know it because we've been seeing it in the comments. We've had you guys emailing us. This is probably going to be the most requested locomotive in this group. And Florida East Coast. Two different schemes here. We've got the mid-1980s paint scheme with the candy cane sill stripe that they were known for. The FEC logo, the hurricane logo, is on affixed to the side. And then we've got the newer paint scheme, the lighter blue. They put their logo on the nose. They did some work on these GP38-2s. They've had these since the beginning. GP38-2s. They were one of the early companies to order. But the 2015 on up paint scheme. So we've got something for everybody on the Florida East Coast. And yeah, honestly, we were surprised with how many people were asking for Florida East Coast. So we had to oblige. Now, this is another one, real strong. A lot of guys asking for the MKTs. You guys have been asking for these, and we had to do it again. There were some things that we kind of missed the first time. We've done a lot more research on these this time, and it's going to pay off this time. We've got a lot of things that developers have been looking at to update, and we're making sure that the colors are right, all of that. We're offering it this time in two different paint schemes. If you look carefully, and this is the simplified paint scheme. So this is later. This is later in the 1980s. Remember when these originally were painted, they had those stripes that carried all the way up to the top of the cab. And this simplified paint scheme probably gave a sigh of relief to the guys in the paint shop. So there you go. I'm glad you guys are excited by this. And I am too. I mean, I think we're all guilty of maybe once in a while buying a locomotive that we don't model the railroad, but we just like the paint scheme, or we like the the way it's set up. And this is one of those. I mean, I would probably buy one of these just because it's such a cool paint scheme, and they do have a really great following. So for you Miss Katie guys out there, this is for you, and glad to see the comments on those. They've a lot of people have been really excited about these. So thanks guys. Thanks Scott. Appreciate that. SB Scotty, he's really likes the FEC units. That's good to hear. It's good to hear. Yes, the doors to the hobby shops where you can pre-order these work. So definitely get to your hobby dealer and open those doors and say, hey, I want some of these cool GP38-2s. So looking through here, D'Angelo looks like he's excited for the GTs. Dylan's liking the FECs. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a good run. The GP38-2 is a great locomotive because just about everybody had them. And definitely one of our more popular locomotives in the Genesis line. So definitely. Kevin's excited about the LNN. That's good. Like I said, this is based on your comments and the questions. We read all those comments. Myself, all the developers, a lot of people read those comments and the emails that you send in. So, all right. Matthew's got a question. He says, hey, have you guys considered Norfolk Southern ex-Conrail GP38-2s in the 5200 and 5300 series? I don't think a proper version of those were done yet. Great question, and actually a great product suggestion. So if you go to our website at athearn.com, go to the Contact Us page, and look for the email. It says product suggestions at athearn.com. By all means, that's a great suggestion, by the way, and I think a lot of other people would share your enthusiasm for that. Go ahead and send that in, because these road names that you're seeing today, a lot of these are based on what people have been asking for, and so we will definitely consider things like that. Hayden, you got here a little late. Where can you list the road names? Real easy. Go to athearn.com, go to the home page, and select the banner that says New Announcements. There's a really nice picture of an MKT GP38-2 for that banner. Select that banner. That will take you to everything that is new today, and you can go ahead and go through there and take a look at them. All right, so I'm going to look, make sure I didn't miss any questions on there. All right. So very exciting. I'm really happy to see those on this run. So we're not done with locomotives though. We've got some more locomotives to show you. Let's see, also from the Genesis line, and that is, we're doing another run of GP7s. And the GP7s, we had some fun with this run, and we tried to hit all of the high points. So we're starting out with the Bangor and a Rustic. Some guys just pronounce it the bar because of its reporting marks, but if you're like me and you grew up not too far from this railroad, it is the Bangor and a Rustic, just in case you didn't know that. We're featuring the simplified paint scheme that they came out with in the early to mid 1960s. As delivered, these had a really beautiful blue and gray paint scheme. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and do a quick search online, and you'll see very, very striking paint scheme. Unfortunately, as we've discussed here before, that doesn't always equate well to maintenance and having to get those touched up in the paint shop all the time. After all, these are tools, they're not show cars. So by the early mid 60s, they went to this simplified paint scheme, and it still works good. And you saw these all throughout the 1970s in this paint scheme. Right up until they went to their last paint scheme of the red and the gray. Now we're also featuring, we'll talk about more of it in an upcoming Train Tuesday. We're also gonna do the GP7 they painted in mid 1975 for the bicentennial, the Jeremiah O'Brien. This was in honor of a Maine patriot, and a really striking paint scheme. A lot of pictures of this available in books and online, and it just seemed to us that since we are doing the Bangor and a Rustic, why not do the bicentennial as well? And I'm pretty excited about that. I'm gonna justify buying that. So yeah. A lot of you guys, hopefully, you're as excited about the bicentennial unit as the rest of us. But we didn't stop there. We're not going to just stick on the Northeast. And check it out. We got some Mandarin Orange coming your way. The Frisco. That's another really catchy paint scheme. We're doing this in 3 different road numbers. And this is, 1960s era paint. So if you're a Frisco modeler in the 60s, this is definitely one that you're going to want to pick up. A neat thing about this is number 611 is a dual service unit. It had a steam generator, so it could do freight or passenger. Now here's one I don't think we've ever done before, at least in Genesis. Midland Valley, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Gulf. Now this is a cool railroad, and we'll talk Again, we'll talk about all of these a little bit more in detail coming up in the next few weeks on Train Tuesday. But this is a standard GM catalog paint scheme, but it's a rather eye-catching paint scheme, and we were fortunate enough to get a really cool picture of it when it was relatively new. And so, don't think we've offered that before. Great Northern. Now, at first glance, you're thinking, okay, it's a Great Northern. Well, you Great Northern fans and early BN fans will know that this is the simplified paint scheme, and one that's not really done too often. Usually the as delivered paint scheme is done and the big sky blue is done, but not as many of the simplified scheme. You can say in the GP7 run, we're really hitting the 60s era, beginning of the 60s and 70s simplified paint schemes. Still a striking paint scheme though. And we're offering this in 3 different road numbers. And according to what our developers found out, some of these actually lasted into the BN era, looking very similar to this, albeit probably weathered somewhat. And then last but certainly not least, Pennsylvania. No, that's not black. Pennsy fans will know that that is Brunswick green and imitation gold. And yeah, I mean, it's based on an original order. And we'll talk about that more later. I think this one is actually operated long hood forward. Yeah, it's a long hood forward locomotive. And we're talking early. This is going to be early 1950s because they were delivered to the Pennsy just like this. So, of course, this is all Genesis. Genesis detail, Genesis sound, available with the Tsunami 2 decoders. And, I'm going through the comments now. I'm just kind of looking through to see if anybody had any questions. Colin, I see that. Would have loved to have seen some ACL, SAL, GP7s. Get to our comment email. If we get enough comments, if we get enough people wanting those, then we will go ahead and produce them. Yes, it is. It's still a great scheme, and I'm still a little secretly bitter that BNSF went from their GN-esque style of painting to the black and orange, or the Great Pumpkin scheme, as I call it. Terry, we're going to talk about those in an upcoming Train Tuesday. So not this coming Tuesday, the first Tuesday of October. We'll talk about those. Otherwise, we'll be here a little bit longer than we should be. So let's go on to the next one, because we got about 8 different items this time that we're going to talk about. But the Genesis locomotives are really some great stuff. Terry's happy. You are certainly welcome, and we thank you. Let's see. I just want to see any other questions or comments. Daniel seems to be happy. And you never know. You never know. Or you can definitely kit bash one. I'm sure you're talented enough to do that. Greg, some more good comments. And you're absolutely right. The nice thing about GP7s and even GP38-2s for that matter, but more so GP7s, is there's so many different roads we can do. So get those comments into our product suggestion email. All right. Yes, the Frisco does look good. Definitely does. Yeah, you could say that. We can't get it every single run, but you know what, Paul? It might come up into a future run. Don't worry. You know what? That I think we'll do those in a future run. When, I don't know. And David, you are absolutely right. Those Jeeps were regulars on the Pennsylvania Railroad in Ohio back in the 60s and 70s. We'll talk more. I don't want to give any more away because I've got so much information on that and some other we'll talk about those on Tuesday. But you say potato, I say potato. We will check. We will check on that train Tuesday when we talk Jeep 7s. And if you've had our Jeep 7s before, I know I'm guilty of owning more than 2 or 3 of those Jeep 7s from former runs. They are just great running locomotives. I use mine mainly as a switching locomotive, but they work great braced together with 3-4 units and long freights on a modular layout or a club layout. So absolutely. We're not done with Genesis though. I've got one more Genesis item to show you. And we're going to switch it up and go to freight cars. We're going to the GATC 2600 covered hoppers. This is the air slide hoppers. Air slide hoppers. And you know what? Some of you guys are out there asking for everything from transition era to 1980s. I think we covered a lot here. So check this out. We're offering them in singles. We're also offering them in a 2-car set. 2-car set usually has a unique car to it that you can't get separately. If you look at that first Santa Fe car, we're talking 1955, right at the very end of that transition era. Some steam, depending on the railroad, was still running, but 55. And then we jump to the 1980s with the next 2 cars. The Santa Fe with the sans serif font here, very familiar in the 70s and 80s. A rather simplified one next to it. And again, these are going to be offered as a single or as a 2-car set. Now, it is a prime for grime 2-car set. And then, of course, we've got the OG. These are the guys that designed this car. And we've got these in the 1955 era, which really sharp. I mean, it's a basic paint scheme, but it's a sharp paint scheme. That gray with the black top and their logo. Again, available as singles or as a 2-pack. You guys in the 70s, Seaboard Coastline. Got your ACI panel there. This one is available as 3 singles. Now, for all you guys that bought the Frisco Jeep 7s, here's your Frisco covered hopper. 1968 era for this. You can definitely extend that out a little bit. You've got the ACI label on there, which, yeah, those were coming out in the late 60s. Southern Pacific, 1966 and forward. These next 3 cars are just available in singles. 3 different road numbers. And then last but not least, Rock Island. And Rock Island had quite a few of these. 1964 onward. A lot of these survived the 60s, 70s, right up until March of 1980. Probably in the same paint. I would have to actually look through my research to quantify that statement, but I'm going to take a guess that a lot of them stayed in that. There you go. See, there's always an SP fan out there. I knew it. SP was a fine road. I only wish I could have rail fanned it more. We always have rock fans. I am guilty of liking the rock. Yes, the Rock Island is a classic. It's kind of like the Midwest version of the Boston and Maine, in my opinion. Let's see. Any other questions on these? Let's see. Frederick, that's a good question, and we'll talk about that for just a second. How much weathering does the Prime for Grime have? So typically on the Prime for Grime stuff, we're going to fade the colors out. So it looks like it's been sun bleached. We're going to cover up reporting marks with a brighter color of gray, black, white, what have you, with the new reporting marks on it. Basically, what we've done if we have given you a starting point for the weathering. So the first thing most guys will do is they'll take one of the prime for grime cars, they'll give it a good coat of dull coat, and then you can add the rust and the dust and the grime from there. But we give you the starting point of, let's say it's a blue Rock Island covered hopper, and a regular one will have a standard Rock Island blue, whereas a prime for grime one, it'll look like a sky blue. It'll look real light because it's going to simulate that faded effect. And it may have the reporting marks of rock and the logo painted out in black or white or what have you. And that basically gives you an excuse to model something pretty much like you see on a daily basis. There's plenty of those survivors out there covered up and have new reporting marks on them. All right, so let's go to our next piece. We're going to start talking about ready to roll next. And we've got some interesting variety with the ready to roll. These are always popular, and I know you guys like them. The HO scale 57-foot Trinity 3-unit spine cars. We're doing them in 4 different road numbers each. Now, we've got the TTX faded. They're prime for grime. And what we were talking about earlier, see the difference? Look at the TTX from the 2000s, that bright, almost construction yellow. And anybody that's gone rail fanning has seen the TTX and how they fade. They go from that, that construction truck yellow to almost a springtime yellow or a faded yellow. And they fade really quickly. And so the TTX, we're looking at the eras of the 2010 plus. That's how they look out of the box. Give it some dull coat and then add the rust and grime. Or if you're a modern guy, there's probably going to be some graffiti on them too. But we're offering the TTX also as it appeared basically new in the 2000s. And also for the 2010s, we've got the BNSF. And these are extremely common. The nice thing about these is they track really well because they're basically die-cast metal. Yep, pale yellow. I've seen it over and over again when I go rail fanning. I mean, they don't stay that bright yellow for very long. So yeah, great comments here. So you guys that are doing the intermodal stuff, the containers, the trailers that we announce, these are great for that. Michael, yes. There have been some that we've done in the past that don't, just so that you can model the car as you like. But we try to put a variety in. I think on this one, they are pre-built. You can still adjust them as you like, but they are assembled. Glenn, glad we could help you out. And thank you for your business. I mean, that's why we do this. We want to hear what you guys want. If we did everything that we just wanted, what the developers wanted, what I wanted, and well, we may or may not sell the items. We want to hear what you guys want. All right. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I like the early BNSF. Pretty much before 2005. That would make a good scene. Definitely. So yeah, like I said, I mean, if you're part of Fremo or any modular HO scale club, these always look good. They look good with all, and another thing too is when we start doing shows again and they're open to the public, this is what the public sees nowadays. They don't see as many of the boxcars and flat cars, traditional flat cars and stuff like we used to. I mean, most people, when they're stuck at a crossing, they're going to see some form of modern container train or trailer train. So these are always great to have for those shows that are open to the open public, and um, just they track well, they look good. It's real easy to build an impressive train with them. Okay, so on the note of ready to roll, I've got another item here to show you. Speaking of container trains, here we go. 40 foot low cube containers. Something a little bit different. I'm going to have to zoom in on this so you guys can see. And again, like I said, we'll talk about these in detail in the next coming weeks. So for you guys that have been rail fanning for a while, this is nothing new. For you young guys out there, we're all familiar with Yang Ming. That logo is everywhere. This morning, just out of curiosity, I looked at the Galesburg rail cam and saw a bunch of these on a stack train headed for Chicago. But here's the original logo. I had an older logo too. So if you're doing the early days of these particular cars, there you go. I have personally, if I've seen these, I don't remember them, but give me a shout out if you remember these or you've seen these, the older logo. I think it's kind of cool. Yeah, we figured it was time. It was time. And let's go on over here, K-line. These are really common. You see these all over. We'll go down to our next one. Nettleoid, I guess is how you would pronounce that. OCL. That's one of the originals. See these quite often. When I rail fan the Transcon of the former Santa Fe, I see these quite often out there. Neil was saying, I was seeing the older logo into the mid 2000s. That's cool. I don't remember seeing those. But you know what? At that point in my rail fanning, I was still shooting with Kodachrome. So I'll have to look at my slides, see if I ever caught any. All right. What else have we got? And the beacon. I think I've only seen this one once or twice. Where you live, your results may vary. Hanjin, I know all of us have seen this. I see this one consistently. It's a very common one for us out here. Austin's excited about the K-line containers. That's good. I'm glad to see you guys are seeing stuff that you're excited about, because that's why we do it. We want to make sure that we're making stuff for you. Here's a picture. You guys remember Janik? We'll have him on again. Don't worry. Just like we had John on a couple of weeks ago. Janik is a avid rail fanner, and is in a part of the country where he can get some really good pictures. So he got this picture of a Yang Ming container a while ago. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out of here. It's always cool to see, Janik's pictures, and we get to use them occasionally. He's a great rail fan. You know, that guy that develops stuff. Like I said, I'm gonna get him back on the show. Don't worry. All right. So let's go on to the next item, because now we're going to talk roundhouse. And we got some really cool items in the Roundhouse lineup this month. Here we go. I'll zoom in on these two so you guys can see them. And again, I've got better artwork to show you, or bigger artwork, I should say, when we have the show. So, okay, we've talked about Roundhouse before. Great operating cars. They don't have all the details are ready to roll and Genesis, but that's great in some ways because they don't break as easily. And they still have the really nice printing to them. So here we've got in 3 different road numbers, BNSF, we're talking 2000s. Now, with the BNSF swoosh, we're talking 2005 onward. They came out with that logo about 2005, and gone was the circle cross, although we can still see them out here occasionally. I kind of, like we were saying earlier, the earlier BNSF was pretty cool. We're also doing 2000s era Canadian National. Now, these are double door FMCs. Now, I'm sure a lot of you older guys out there remember the FMC per diem era, 1970s. A lot of these are leftovers from that era. And there was a lot of boxcars made during the per diem era. We'll have to get, when we get John on the show again, he's done a lot of research on the per diem era boxcars, and he's a wealth of information for that. Minneapolis, Northfield, and Southern Railway. Really cool car. This is 1970s. Right in the middle of that per diem era. 3 different road numbers. And then, of course, Southern Pacific, 1970 Southern Pacific. SP fans this month, your cup runneth over. There's all kinds of neat stuff. 3 road numbers. We didn't stop there. There's more SP. I think there's more SP. Yep, there's more SP. 1990s, though, because, again, we're getting a lot of requests for 1990s era equipment. So here you have it, Southern Pacific and the speed lettering, which I always thought was just really cool, tastefully done. A really nice looking boxcar. 3 different road numbers. If you're from the 1990s into the 2000s, you remember seeing these. There's probably still some out there. I haven't seen one in a while. And again, late 1990s. This would be right up before the merger in 95. But remember, just because the merger happened in 95 and you're running BNSF doesn't mean you've got to re-letter everything in your fleet. These guys survived like this for quite a few years. That Cascade Green lives on. Frederick says, nice speed lettering. Yeah, it was a cool paint scheme. I mean, it's just, yeah. It was a nice, it was a great railroad. It's one of those railroads I think a lot of us didn't realize how much we'd miss it now that it's gone. Yep, that's right. When BN first was, became their own railroad in the 70s, yeah, they embellished that BN stylized logo on everything, and it was huge. Late 80s, early 90s, they started taking a more conservative paint scheme. I wouldn't be surprised. I personally haven't seen one, but I'm sure they're out there. Didn't do any before the swoosh this time. There's two camps of BNSF modelers, the swoosh and before swoosh. All right. So we've talked about Roundhouse. We've talked about Genesis. We've talked about Ready to Roll. We've talked about HO, basically. N-scale guys. Any N-scale guys in the audience, raise your hand. I've got stuff for you, too. I've got some neat stuff for you N-scale guys. And we're going to start with something that if you guys have an N-scale switching layout, you might want to pick one of these up. So just like the Genesis HO, we're offering these in N-scale. Now these N-scale cars are impressive. I've had these from previous runs, and for N-scale cars, they're extremely impressive. For one thing, body-mounted couplers, metal wheel sets, but the details are just phenomenal for an N-scale car. That lettering, your eyes probably can't read it. I know my eyes can't read it, but if I put my Optivisor on, yeah, I can read that. I can read what it's saying. It's not just a bunch of scribbles like in the old days. So anyways, N-scale guys in the 1950s, the Santa Fe, that top one there, perfect. Like I said, 1955 onward. For you guys that are modeling the 1980s, we've got the Santa Fe, like I was saying earlier, the sans serif font. And these two are prime for grime. I don't think there's any other N-scale manufacturer out there that offers their freight cars in prime for grime. That's an Athearn exclusive. So if you're one of these guys that is trying to show everybody that, hey, you know what? The HO scale guys, whatever they can do, I can do better. And you're weathering these and you're putting all that time and effort into these prime for grime ones are a great start. The GACX, we're offering that in singles as well as a 2-pack. These are also 1955 era. So for you N-scale guys that are still running mainline steam and want to get something for your transition era layout, these are perfect for that. Seaboard Coastline, 1970s. And yes, I can say from experience, that little tiny ACI panel is included when you get the freight car. Another Athearn thing that we do, we specify all that detail has to be put on there. I've said it before. I mean, at one time, N-scale was kind of a novelty. It's not a novelty anymore. There's a lot of great modelers out there that are doing some great things in N-scale. So we want to give them the same detail and attention that we can as we do the HO guys. Now, physics sometimes doesn't allow that, but it's just amazing to me how detailed these models are. Now, we've got the Frisco. We got the Southern Pacific, and of course, we've got the Rock Island. We're talking 1960s on these three, mid to late 60s. Certainly can use them into the 70s. And one of the things that we did with these, we'll go over it real quick, a little bit, something else that we want to show you that we do with the N-scale stuff. Rectangular oval shaker brackets, see-through metal roof walk. These have all separately applied hatches, brake wheel. They're already weighted, ready to go. And for you T-track guys, I know you T-track guys are out there because I've seen your comments. Yes, these operate great on T-track, operate great on N-track, operate great on Fremo N or whatever you have. They're just great running cars. I've used them on my N-scale switching layout, the Galesburg City job, and I've had zero issues with them. They're just a great running, great detailed car. So I'll leave those up here for you to look at. See if any N-scale guys have joined us. Herc really wants a hat. Every time I see you, Herc, you're like, I want a hat. I'd throw one to you, but our technology's not there yet. Herc, stay tuned. We're working on stuff. Let's see. Yeah, we hear you. We got stuff coming. All right. I thought I had seen somebody ask a question from the N scale. Well, Ken seems to be happy. Matt says N scale. I hope that's a good N scale and not just like, oh, N scale. I have appreciations for both scales. The only limitation that N scale holds for me is my eyesight. All right, I've got one more N scale offering, and then we're going to call this show done. We'll stick around if you've got a question. I'll answer a few questions, and then I'm going to let you guys get on with your weekend. Friday is the official gateway to the weekend, and I want you guys to have a great weekend doing some modeling. So let's show this last item. And these are N scale containers. Now, see, this is where the N scale guys have you beat. Because I have seen some monster size Fremo setups and N-track setups and even T-track setups where they're modeling freight trains that to me look so prototypical. It's just on point because, in the real world, these stack trains go on and on and on and on. It's nothing to see 3-4 locomotives on the head end and maybe a helper in the middle and a helper on the end. Just depends on the railroad. And the N scale guys, man, they've got the real estate. You don't have to take up as much real estate. You can build a very convincing stack train very easily. So these 40-foot low cube containers, this is for you guys out there that like to do those monster trains. We're offering them in 2 3-packs each. And just like we were talking about earlier, we've got the Yangming new and the Yangming old, the old logo, which I still think is kind of cool. We've got the K-line. And like I said, each and every one of these, they're a 3-pack. We've got 2 sets, so they all have different road numbers. The OCL, the Nealoid, Beacon, not Bacon. I saw somebody say Bacon. It's Beacon. Made me laugh. I had to say something. And then Hanjin. And then that cool picture from Janik again. N scale, fully assembled, easily stackable, and each container is individually numbered. So for you N scale guys out there that like to make those monster stack trains, there you go. So there we have it. I don't know Mr. Wiggins personally for president. My name's actually Wiggin. There's no S, but it's a common mistake. He's got my vote. I don't want to be that guy because they get blamed for everything. All right. Ronald says he's never heard of Beacon. Ronald, to be honest with you, I do a lot of rail fanning. If I have seen them, it wasn't like, oh wow, there's one. I honestly, I don't remember seeing any. Some of you guys out there, maybe just based on where you are living, maybe you do see them. Either way, we always want to come out with not just the stuff that you see all the time. We also want to come out with stuff that isn't as visible. So anyways, all right. Well, let's take some questions. We got time. And like I said, some of you guys sounds like you're lucky. It sounds like in Ohio they're having a RPM. I love RPMs. My wife doesn't because I usually come back with something. But let's see. Okay, Lionel, this is cool. I'm going to put your comment up there. I've seen these beacon containers in Rockford, Illinois on frames behind trucks. Interesting. I used to live in Rockford, so I must not have been paying attention when I lived up there. But that's cool. Thanks for letting us know. Kurt, he's pretty happy. Hopefully you get those locomotives in that air slide. I mean, that's some cool stuff. Jonathan, anytime somebody writes a long comment like this, I like to throw it up there because they're putting the effort out there. Jonathan says, how about a Canadian National Pacific Type 462, like a steam engine until 5588? Spirit of Windsor is currently displayed located at the front of the Detroit River. I'm not going to pronounce that and butcher it. Garden Park in downtown Windsor. Well, it's possible. One of the things about steam locomotives is they are so almost personalized. Not only is every steam locomotive for every railroad different, but every number on those steam locomotives are different too. So it takes a large amount of time to get that research done. And really, that's the hardest part about steam locomotive development is the research. Doesn't mean we won't do it. You can certainly put in your request in. Let's see. I saw another comment here that airplanes. Well, we are owned by Horizon Hobby. They do some airplanes. I could talk to somebody. Somebody had a question on Dash 9s. I'm going to see if I can find that. Here we go. Do you know when the Dash 9s will be in? Do I have a firm date? No, but I will tell you this much. Soon. Real soon. It's just a guess at this point because, like I said, with everything going on, if you've been following the news with shipping and containers and things of that nature, it's kind of hard to get a firm ETA, but they are coming soon. I'm going to say hopefully just before November. I'm looking forward to those as well. So, and trust me, as soon as we get some, we'll put them on a train Tuesday. We will definitely show them. You wouldn't see it because even in HO, I'm N scale. I'm not that tall. I'm proudly a short guy. Let's see. There was another question on something that John and I talked about. Chase, yeah, this is a good question. Is there a tentative release date for the SW1500s and HO? Just curious as to how far out I need to budget. That's a valid question because we all live with a budget, whether we like it or not. And so to answer your question about the SW1500s, before the end of the year. And since we're talking October, there's not many months left. So, yeah, it's before the end of the year. And I know I'm going to be guilty of picking up some as soon as we announce them. Let's see. Yeah, Lionel, you're right. There's some supply problems out there, mainly because of everything that's going on, but we'll get through it. We always do. Now, actually, I'm going to put Herc's comment back up again because he wasn't just joking. He wasn't saying, I want an RC Athearn plane. He said, yes, you can't find airplanes anywhere. There are a few manufacturers out there in HO that have made, and even, I think even in N scale. Yeah, N scale too, have made both civilian aircraft and military aircraft, but not a lot. And so that's something to think about. And if you think like Herc saying, hey, you know what, we could use some airplanes in HORN, definitely put that in the product suggestion. And better yet, if you're knowledgeable about aircraft, if you want to say, hey, I want to see a DC-3, DC-10, PA-18, if you've got specific planes you want to see on your layout, let us know. Because the beauty of it is we have access to a lot of information on the airplane side too. So Jake here, as far as the SW1500, so pre-order, which means depending on how you're set up with your dealer, pre-order will be before the end of the year. And like I said, depending on how you're set up with your dealer, you would pay for them and they would probably be in towards the end of next year at this time. Terry's like, crop dusters would be cool. That's actually pretty practical, especially if you're modeling the Midwest. Even if you just had a small part of your module or layout where you had one parked, that would be a cool setup. We had, I think we announced them a while ago. Athearn did a flat car many years ago, and it would be under the Roundhouse line. I think that had like a I can't remember if it was supposed to be a Beech or a Mooney airplane, like a civilian airplane from the 50s, but not quite to scale. That was based on some older stuff. All right, I got time for maybe one more, maybe two more questions. We're getting close to that end of the show. Any other questions on what you've seen today? Any questions that you might have on the September announcements? Because like I said, depending on where you're at, if you're in my home part of the country, maybe your hobby shop's already closed. So hopefully you get your pre-orders in. Midwest and guys out there on the West Coast, you still got some time. So that reminds me, as soon as I wrap this up, I've got to get my pre-order in for my MP15 AC because my small switching layout could really use one of those. Good question. And I'm going to ask, did you put that into our product suggestion email? Because you're not the only one that's asked that. Nothing in the plans right now, but all right. What else have we got? Paul, great question. Any more surveys coming for upcoming locomotives asking for road names? Yeah, we want to hear from you. The MP15 survey that we did was helpful to both us and it was helpful to you guys. So yeah, absolutely. You're going to see more of that. You're going to see a lot more surveys in the future going into 2022. We want to get your feedback, including, we talked a little bit about it on Train Tuesday, changing the time of Train Tuesday. Maybe we're going to do that later. That way it's easier for a lot of you guys on the One Coast to see it. All right, I got time for one more question, and then we're going to call this good. SB Scotty says, I like customer surveys. Well, we do too, because it makes our job easier. We definitely want to. Jonathan, I'm not sure what aircraft that tail number is for, but I think you can probably guess I'll order an SW1500 and do it up as a certain locomotive stationed near you. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions, so I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. And Jay, your question just came up about parts. Go to our website, go to our contact us, and there is a email address there. Like I said on Tuesday, when you email the parts department, be as specific as possible. Let them know what locomotive it is, what the name of the part is, and the part number. That way we get you the right part the first time, and we cut down on the frustrations. So with that, like I said, this is the gateway to the weekend. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I know myself, I'm off to a Fremo event in Central Illinois. Looking forward to doing that this weekend. We will talk again this next Tuesday, talking about the October Genesis GP38-2. So I will see you on Train Tuesday. And until then, I want everybody out there to be happy, be healthy, stay safe, do some modeling this weekend. Above all, high greens, everybody. Take care.